Hi, I'm Murrye Bernard, writer, architect, and contributor to Alcon Lighting's Insights and Language of Lighting. I recently sat down with Francesca Bettridge, senior lighting designer and principal at Klein Bettridge Bernstein Lighting Design in New York, for a thoughtful conversation on the evolving role of lighting in shaping experience, architecture, and human connection. We talk about her design philosophy, the collaborative nature of lighting, and how thoughtful illumination can transform both space and perception, balancing technical precision with emotional impact. I hope you enjoy it. Well, yeah, thank you again for agreeing to speak with me. I've been familiar with you and your firm's work for a long time, and so I was really thrilled you agreed to do this. Especially close to my heart, that you worked on the William J. Clinton Presidential Center. I actually grew up in Arkansas, and I worked for the firm after I graduated architecture school. I worked for the local architect on the project. So, and it was really a beautiful project. And I especially remember the lighting because I remember seeing the artichoke pendants, and I was really obsessed with the artichoke pendants at the time. So.
Throughout my career, I've tried to get those on different projects, and I've been successful. Whenever I have been successful, it's been great.
That's awesome.
And they also make, and this I never got on a project, they make the artichoke in diffuse glass.
Oh wow, I bet that's beautiful. I haven't seen that.
And expensive.
Yes, they're all believe. I looked into getting one for myself, and I was like, maybe later.
Yeah, I know. So no, I love their line.
Yeah, really beautiful.
So I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk to you about lighting.
Yeah.
And I remember at the opening of the Clinton Library, it was pouring rain. It was really terrible weather.
I remember that too. I didn't get to go, but I watched it on TV. So
yeah,
I do remember hearing it.
It was fun anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember the next day, I was in the building, and Clinton came in. He came walking in. It was really like Elvis had come entered the building. Everybody was so excited, and he was so handsome, and it was great. And my daughter Shannon, actually, her stepmother is Susan Thomas's, who was a good friend of the Clintons.
Okay,
and so she was there for the inauguration and for different things that happened. And she was a child that. But she would call up, and Hillary would say to her, "Shannon, why don't you come down and visit us down at the White House?" And she would say, "I've really been very busy." The innocence of it all. But there was, I don't know if you remember, there was a point where they had a list of all the people that had stayed at the White House for the Clintons. You know, as this was a big to-do. You know, this was so outrageous. And Shannon, as a child, was one of the people on the list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that it just shows you how silly those things are. So,
what a great story, though. That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, Shannon, she went to the University of Michigan. And it was supposed to be Bill Clinton giving the address, but it was Hillary instead, and which was wonderful. And she came in. I was surprised by how beautiful she was. I mean, you didn't get that on the TV. I mean, we're all age, but at that point, how beautiful she was. And that what Shannon's stepmother said was that everything that Hillary Clinton says is extemporaneous. She is so smart that she doesn't write down anything. It's in there, in that breath. So those are my Clinton stories that I that's all. I like the architects very much too.
Yeah.
Were the architects. Well, now they're ENIAC.
Yeah, it's funny enough. I worked for the local architect, which is Polk Stanley was the local architect, and then I went on to work for Polshek in New York later in my career as in the marketing department. I kind of switched over from being an architect to writing about architecture. So I've actually worked for both of the firms that worked on that project, funny enough. But so now it's lovely to actually get to meet the lighting designer behind it as well. So
yes, it was a great project. Sometimes I look back at a long career, and there are certain things that I am very fond of and proud of.
you've worked on some of the most iconic commercial and LEED certified projects in the world. Looking back, what defining moment or project most shaped your approach to lighting design?
Look back, I was really shaped by my experience speaking and learning from different people that opened my eyes to the how that really served as the foundation as to how I approach design. And for one, it was Carol Klein, who was my partner, my first partner, my friend, and my mentor. He was a wonderful, really one of the pioneers of architectural lighting design. He started out at SOM, and then he was lent out to Edison Price to work on the lighting for I think it's Central Savings Bank. And then he stayed on with Edison Price for the next 15 years as the vice president of design there. And then he went out on his own. And I was attending a design school I set up. I was actually helped set it up with Beppe Zampanini, who was a visionary Italian architect. It was the Open Atelier of Design. And during one of the crits, afterwards, Carol called me up and asked me if I would work for him. So that's how I got into lighting design. Wow. There was an older woman there who was, older. She was probably like 5 years older than I. She was already an interior designer, and she said, "Look, this is open to women. This is a new field." And at that time, you go into any architectural firm, and there were no women in the architects, except out at reception.
Right.
And so, so that's how I started with Carol. I took that. I was his one staff person at that time, and then we joined Jim Knuckles in a firm, and then it became CBB with Stephen Bernstein.
Sure.
So anyway, Carol was my first partner, and he whenever we would start a project, I'm looking a little bit at my notes. He said, "What are we lighting?" That's how we'd sit down and we look at the drawings and say, "What are we lighting?" And that really starts the process of looking at the surfaces and the mood and the style and the amount of illumination we want in a composition. Right. And so that's really how I start everything.
Yeah, it is a composition. In the end,
what are we lighting here?
Right.
And what's going to enhance the architecture? And then another example is years ago, I was the lighting designer for Calvin Klein's apartment.
Oh, wow.
It was a duplex. Yeah, I think it was a duplex on Central Park West, which happened to be the building in Ghostbusters.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, on Central Park West.
Wow.
I mean, when you got over to the interiors, it wasn't the same.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and that was Ghostbusters. So, and so I asked him. He was very nice and handsome at that time too. Also very handsome. So I asked him, "What do you want from the lighting?" And he said, "I want people to look good."
Yeah. Now
that's understandable for what his profession was, but it actually has been. It's not superficial. It is really the foundation of how I approach lighting.
Yeah, it's very important.
You don't want shadow people, with lighting all around the perimeter and none on your face. You don't want harsh shadows. So if people look good, they feel good. It's really sort of the basis of how you should approach it with people in mind and how they look in mind.
You were involved in some of the earliest LEED milestones, including the William J. Clinton Presidential Center and the first LEED Platinum skyscrapers. How has sustainable lighting design evolved since those early projects?
I'm saying that sustainable practice came about during the energy crisis of the 1980s and the push for energy codes. And that also triggered the push for new technologies.
Mhm.
Now, in my firm working with Carol, there was always a tremendous interest in new technologies, new sources.
Right.
So it was we put the first MR16 in residence.
Wow.
There was and then every time you start with a new technology, you also have a learning curve,
Mhm.
things that happen.
Yeah, of course.
And the Biax lamp, the Master Color HIDs, all of those things, incorporating those into there. And so the lighting design collaborates with the architect. So to help define what the finishes are, how they reflect the light, and decide on what we want to light, and then understand the brightness of the fixtures and the dimming controls and the visual comfort.
Mhm.
The Platinum LEED certified projects, such as Bank of America, Torrey Iberdrola. I sent you a page.
Thank you for that, by the way.
And the Emory Center, Emory Student Center, that was with Duda Payne, who were wonderful architects. They all benefited from the new LEDs, and we couldn't have met that without it. But it has to come from the owners and the architects wanting to achieve that.
True. Yeah, they have to be on board for sure.
Yeah, and they really are the drivers of that. So you come in and they say what their goal is. Then you go from there.
Yeah.
And so that meant that often that we had to really use the new technology, whatever it was, because it was much more energy efficient.
Yeah. In high performance commercial buildings today, how do you balance energy goals with creating visual drama and architectural impact?
It's really the collaboration with talented architects and interior designers. And from that relationship and design perspective, it starts the process. I don't think that on a project, I hope I'm telling you the truth, that I have ever felt there was only one good idea.
Yeah.
So that you really need to come up with a number of ideas, because as the architecture changes and as the cost comes in, you really have to edit. And the important thing is to keep the most significant and crucial elements of the design.
Right.
And that's a coordination and sticking to your guns. Not like, I really need this, or, all right, if need be.
Can you share a project where technical limitations, such as budget, codes, or structure, actually led to a more innovative lighting solution?
Often that has happened, but I think one of my favorites that I would point out to you is the Segerstrom Concert Hall in Costa Mesa. That was a Caesar Pelli project.
Okay.
And it was a great team. With all of these complicated projects, it's really who's the acoustician, who are the interiors people, who's the contractor. And we had to meet Title 24, California's energy code.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2006. So, this was there, and in this, and if you go online, even if you go to our site, you'll see you'll see Segerstrom. The concert hall is fabulous. It's beautiful, but it has these very tall, like 4 or 5 foot balconies that wrap around the concert hall, and we wanted to illuminate all of those. Now, previously, we would have probably used a halogen strip to do that.
Right.
But no way could we afford the watts, and also there was the maintenance.
Yes.
How do you get to them? And so I knew that we had to try to use LEDs. At that point, there wasn't even a white LED. You had to match red, red and green.
Yes.
So all of the fixtures, fortunately, by the time we got to that point, a number of years later, there wasn't a white LED, but all the fixtures in there had to be custom because they didn't exist.
Right.
And all manufacturers, when you'd say, could you do something in LED? They say, oh, yeah, sure. Because I thought of it as just a low voltage fixture.
Right.
And they didn't take into account the heat problem the moisture problem, the controls, and also that they had to be manufactured in a static-free environment. So at another time, I can tell you about the different experiences I've had with my early technology with LEDs. But that was one, and it was it was a wonderful project, and it did end up working out very well.
On large commercial towers, how do you approach lighting differently at the city skyline level versus the pedestrian experience at street level?
Interesting aspects of my career that I think are well kept secrets.
Okay. I would love
And
to hear that.
well, for example, how many towers in New York I've lit.
Yeah.
I did Bloomberg, I did Seven World, I did Time Warner, I did Bank of America, I did 2 Penn, I did 11 Penn, I did 1 Penn. I mean, I've done a lot of towers.
Done a lot. And Seven World, I've always been a huge fan of. It's so beautifully lit. It's really a nice project.
And I've also done a lot of projects in Austin. And I'm finishing up at this point, KPF's the architect with HKS. I'm finishing up, which will be the tallest tower in Texas.
Wow. I'm actually in Texas right now.
Oh, are you in Austin?
Unfortunately, no. I'm outside of Dallas, but Austin's a lot more fun. I did live most of my adult life in New York City, so I'm probably more familiar with those projects than any others. But
well, the one we just finished was the Republic. Okay. It's very beautiful on the skyline.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, that was Duda Payne, architect.
Yeah, okay.
So, you're asking about skyline versus pedestrian. That's street level.
Yes.
So when we designed the night imagery for a tower, the lighting is seen in the long view. And so the choices are made to articulate the architecture from the middle ground and the far ground.
Right.
That's how we're viewing it. And it's important to understand the context. And by that, I mean, what are the surrounding buildings and neighborhoods? And is it color changing, which mostly people want now?
They do.
And what are the materials of this facade? Because I'm often given an all glass facade.
Yes, that's got to be challenging.
And so what I've developed years ago, again, another Caesar Pelli job is at Cira Centre in Philadelphia, where they wanted it to be a prism like, but they didn't want anything actually applied, obviously, to it. In the between the facade and the next layer, we put an LED grid.
Oh, okay.
That were before you had LED grids.
Yeah.
And so you see, by day you don't see anything, but by night you see that. And we only did it on the orthogonals, so that it really articulates the facets of the building.
Yeah.
So that was again early uses of the LED. So the all glass buildings have very special challenges, and that's basically what almost all you see now.
Yeah.
At the pedestrian level, you need to take into account the light levels, what the codes are for safety for people walking. You want to make sure you see people coming towards you. And it's also wayfinding and how people look. And how does the design that you're doing at the pedestrian level relate to the interior space? I mean, is it a transparent facade? So how does the interior and the exterior work with each other?
Right.
And how is that transition made? Yeah. Or is it something that's like almost a secret? You go in and it's a completely different experience.
Right.
So it's the interaction of the pedestrian spaces with the interior spaces is really what we look at. And then one of the important things about tower lighting, and this was true with Caesar, but also with Tehran Duda, who was from Duda Payne Architects. They're in Raleigh. It was avoiding the disembodied top.
Yeah.
So that, you don't have the shaft and then all of a sudden you have the top.
Right.
So how do you pull that either up from the base or down from the top? And you make that connection. So it's important when you're talking about the pedestrian level and the skyline level are there methods and designs which actually are helping connect that base to the top?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it for sure. Because your plan of experiences, I think sometimes that was one thing that about living in New York, I'm like, I always tried to remember to look up because there's so much of the city above you. And I think sometimes people get so caught up in just, getting from point A to point B, they forget to stop and look up. But like seeing that connection is really a beautiful thing.
Yes. So it's a design challenge and it has to be a priority of the architects.
Right. Absolutely.
And sometimes it's very hard because you can have a glass curtain wall and it's a certain color glass, and then you get to the crown and then they want some sunlight to come through it, and they don't want during the day, they want it to see as a continuous surface. But once you get to the above the tenant level, their structure, inevitably there will be a separation between the crown and the base and the rest of the tower. So there are different ways in which we would work with the top, with the upper levels of the tower to have indirect light or cove light or something that is connecting those two things.
Right.
And in terms of the being sensitive to the environment, we did the frost bank in Austin. It's a very iconic top there. But that was the first tall building that was illuminating top in a historic district.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So it's like, how are you also, you want to be celebrating it, but how are you also, and you want to pull up the base into the top and not, but you also need to be sensitive in terms of the light levels and what you're doing to the area around. Now, in the meantime, it's like, the gates have opened. So there's a lot of towers lit in Austin, but at that point, that was the first one that was.
Yeah.
And
you've really shaped the skyline of that city. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And let's see, I did Congress at 4th. I did 405 Colorado. I did it's the one that the ones that I'm doing right now. Yeah, the Republic and also Waller Creek. So,
award-winning lighting often feels effortless. How do you determine when to push a design and when to hold back?
The relationship, Stephen and I often will say that lighting design is really about relationships. It's really about how you can communicate with the architects. And hopefully it's a good, positive one. Usually it is. I mean, I'm very grateful in my career that I get to work with smart people.
Right. Yeah, it helps for sure.
Not everybody can say that. And often the owners, guide the narrative also. So this is a story I'm going to tell you about Caesar. One of my favorite buildings I was talking about before was Segerstrom, the concert hall, which has this wonderful curving glass facade, and you look inside of it into the lobby and atrium there, and you see the curving balconies, and then there is a big central open space. And the goal was to enhance the transparency. So the way you do that is you light the back walls so that it starts to dissolve the facade, the clear facade with the inside. And the ways in which you do it is to be lighting the back walls or lighting the fronts of balconies, bringing the eye in there. And the architects in charge of the design told me at that point that Caesar, he didn't want a big pendant or chandelier in that big open space.
Right.
And so in those days, the way we would get across our ideas in presentations, it wasn't PowerPoint. We would do drawings.
Yeah.
Very large drawings on what we used a gray paper that had a little bit of a nib to it, and then would print the architecture on it, and then we would go in with colored pencils with different yellows and whites and things like that to get across all of the ideas, and that's how we did it.
Yeah.
And we had at that time we had very talented people working for us, but there was one who she just drew beautifully, and so I said to Jiang, why don't you sketch in this, for the different schemes we showed, do one scheme where you're sketching in sort of an abstract pendant or chandelier in this big space, in that big open space. And so when we pinned it up and Caesar was looking at it and he said, Francesca, I didn't think I wanted anything here, but I like this.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
And so
sometimes you don't know till you see it.
So you sometimes have to, you have to be able to give them choices and risks.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what would you want it to look like, Caesar? And he said, I imagine it as a string that comes down with a little light, like a little halogen light at the end of it. But it's dropping like 40 feet, 40, 50 feet. And it ended up being a big spiral. You can look at it, online. It's a big spiral that's 40 feet wide. And so what we did instead of the strings, they had to be stainless steel rods that came down.
Yeah.
And of course, there was the voltage drop and everything. And then again, it couldn't just be a little sparkly dot at the end in that scale.
Right.
So we ended up working with them and they designed a custom baccarat crystal.
Wow.
Which I still have a sample of.
Oh, nice.
And so you have the rods that come down, and then at that point, again, there wasn't a white LED when we started this. It was going to have to be combining the red and the green and however. But by the time we did this, there was a white LED.
Ah, okay.
So it comes down into one white LED, which illuminates this beautiful crystal. Wow. But also, it was in an earthquake zone. Yeah. So we had to take that into account so that there are then, ways of very thin rods and wires that go around. And so to keep it from going crazy, isn't great.
I would be swinging all through the space.
But so that was one example that is one of my favorites. And Caesar was like that. Sometimes I would go when another project, I would show him an idea. And he was so courtly and so smart and, just inspiring. And he'd look at it and he'd say, thank you, Francesca. I didn't think of that. Not quite right for this project, but I appreciated you showing it to me. So there would be a dialogue that was friendly and helpful. I remember one time we would work on Overture, and it was with the clients were coming, they were flying in. I was at Caesar's office, and I went up on the train from New York, and I had put the portfolio up on the above, and then it was the last stop, and I got out and I got into the cab and I realized, oh my God, I left it all on the train.
Oh no. Oh my God.
I almost had a heart attack. And so I ran back in and they had already closed the train, and they said have to go back to New York, and I was crying, and anyway, somebody home got it, and I ultimately got it. And
Oh, that's amazing.
I went panting into to Caesar's office, and I told him what had happened.
Yeah.
And he told me of a story where he was, I wonder what building it was. They were going down, they were flying down, and they had their presentation material, but it was the wrong one was picked up. The wrong portfolio was picked up. It was somebody else. And they got to put it up. So, it's nice when you can have human moments.
Yes. Everybody's got one of those stories.
Human moments with great people.
Yeah. You've seen major shifts from early lead era systems to today's LED and smart controls. What technological advancement has had the most meaningful impact on your workflow? Yeah, we touched on that a little bit. They weren't even white to begin with, so there's been so many changes since then,
Yes,
and a lot to adapt to. I mean, it seems like every time I turn around, I'm writing a new article on LEDs. I'm like, whoa, it's like a completely different.
Yeah, it changes every 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes, I mean, there have been times when a project is going on for like 5 or 10 years. And then I go at the end to do the punch list and to focus and look at it. Why the hell did we use those fixtures? And then it was because when we specified so long ago.
Yeah.
Why is the aperture so big?
Right.
And so I would say definitely LEDs. And I have a story for you about this also.
Okay.
Because it was before 2000, because I did the Time Warner Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a lecture. It was at the Cooper Hewitt.
Mm-hmm.
And no, not Cooper Union. It was the Cooper Union.
Cooper Union.
It was the Cooper Union.
Okay.
And it was a Hewitt Packard engineer
Mm-hmm.
who was giving a talk on light sources. And at that point, LEDs were starting to be used as indicator lights, but they weren't used in any other way.
Right.
And he was saying that the difference with an LED is it's not a incandescent that heats up, it's electronics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so he had something that looked almost like a flashlight, and he beamed it one red very thin beam across this entire auditorium.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed. I went back to the office and I said, I know what the future of lighting is. It's called LED.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that was the beginning of our many misadventures and adventures with LEDs.
Yeah.
So as I was starting the Time Warner project, and I went in, they were to make a presentation about the lighting concepts. I went into a room, 50 men. I was the only woman, and very long table. And I had gotten this simple strip of LEDs from somewhere. And I said to them, you're building towers for the next century. This is the light source of the next century.
Yeah.
It's called LED. And they said, okay. So that's how I incorporated it into it. But it was a tough learning curve on that again.
Yeah.
Because I think that the meaningful things, as in the controls, have had a big impact on our work.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And then that the controls are much more complicated. And even though LEDs are all dimmable, the controls are much more costly.
They are, yeah.
And you have to be very good at it. You have to be very good at your research and really understand the drivers and understand how they work with the LEDs. And so there's a lot of development work that goes into it and a lot of documentation to make sure it goes smoothly.
Yeah.
And that really separates out, I think, the wheat from the chef.
Right.
And the other thing that I have noted here is AGI, computer analysis of lighting concepts. The way we used to do it by hand, but then the early controls. I'm trying to remember what the early computer program was called. But the AGI makes a big difference, and now we use it so much to prove to ourselves that the distribution is correct and that the light levels are correct. And so that has been a big one. And CAD and Revit and BIM documentation have been a huge change.
I bet. Yeah.
And so it's the coordination with the drawings for complex teams.
Yeah.
And very often with the Revit, we have to, before we can even start our work, we have to simplify it down so that all our computers don't crash.
Yeah.
Working on one level.
Yeah.
You don't need all of that.
Yeah.
And
you don't need to see everybody's layers on everything.
So it's very good for the contractors.
Yeah.
But it's much harder and more time consuming and costly for the designers.
True.
A major tower in New York, and there is a double glass wall facade.
Yeah.
And so often the architects and the owners have preconceived ideas of what that is.
Right.
And so they showed us their rendering, and it within this double glass wall, where you could walk out, I mean, it was a deep wall, it was all diffuse light. So that's what they wanted the lighting to be. So I said, well, really the only way we could do that is if you fill it up with smoke.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you light it, and you wouldn't want to do that.
Right. That would be bad.
Then we had to say, look, if you want to be making this a dynamic facade, let's look at different ways to do that.
Right.
And so then we introduced the idea at every level that there would be there could be a cove that was lighting the ceilings of those areas. And I mean, between you and me, it was a Bank of America. That was the tower, the one in New York City.
Yeah.
So you can look and see how we did solve that problem. It was a very complex job, and it was wonderful. Really, it was. And the owners were very involved. In every design meeting, they were there.
Oh, wow.
That was the Durst. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That doesn't always happen.
I know.
Yeah.
But they were very committed to this. And so it was Cook plus Fox at that point with the architects.
Yeah.
And they were too. They were really very much into sustainable. And so we were able to, in all of those areas, be using LEDs. And as I said, on the fronts of all of those going up, all of those balconies and lighting up the ceilings at each level. We used those were LEDs, and then that was a case where the LEDs started to fail and turn color.
Yeah.
And so they had to change them all out. I have probably more stories of LEDs and MR16s that were learning experiences. To get the right, but you have to keep on going. You have to keep on going to make it right.
Exactly. And the technology is always changing, and so do the designers. They have to keep up with that.
Yeah.
When evaluating fixtures for large commercial projects, what separates a thoughtfully engineered luminaire from a commodity product?
In the details and the thoughtfulness that the manufacturers put into it.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are the end caps lights? Are there light leaks? How do the fixtures work in tandem? Is it toolless? How are the fixtures aimed and locked in position? How does it adjust to field conditions? And so knowing and working with the manufacturer is very important.
Yeah.
And we're really been, in my career, we've been very fortunate that the manufacturers reps who we work with are very amenable and helpful. But if there's an installation issue, like there was one down in Austin on a project, and then up at T Penn we had an issue too. And you get in touch with the manufacturers, if they're willing, if they send a representative into the site to work it out with the contractors and to the electricians, and then maybe go back and custom make some kind of baffle or detail that's going to work. And they're doing all of this for the job, then I know that I want to use their products. I trust them.
Yeah.
because it really, again, it comes down to the respect, cooperation, and coordination.
Yeah.
And so
What will define premium commercial lighting in the next decade?
it's, I don't know, and it's this decade and the next decade that it's the importance of the family of the fixtures, with the matching apertures, and providing even more efficient fixtures and using fewer watts and delivering more lumens. I mean, New York State now has a new energy code
Yeah.
that's sometimes the unintended consequences of good thinking means that it really hurts the design
Yeah.
until they come up with more efficient fixtures.
That's true.
I'm
Yeah.
just my personal opinion on that. So the consistency, of course, the line is crucial, and dim to warm or tunable white. Or now what you're finding with the color changing fixtures, is there a family of them? Are there accent lights and linear fixtures? And can they, because it's very hard, as I very recently experienced last week, when you have different manufacturers on different parts of the building,
Right.
and then you have to program it and match the color. So you have to have
Oh.
really good programming.
Yeah, that sounds challenging.
Yeah, it is. They're long nights, and so there's a increasingly a greater shift to more sustainable goals such as cradle to cradle. How does one recycle? What goes into the landfills? And at this point, it's becoming an economic imperative to care about the environment and all that we do. So I think that's how I answered that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you took the time to, think all of this through and write out
Talk
such
about it. Yeah.
thoughtful answers. It's really a privilege to speak with you. I've long been a fan of your work, and to be honest, I considered a career pivot into architectural lighting at one point in time, and still may do it someday. Who knows? But anyway, I find your work very inspiring, and I was super
Oh, thank you.
excited you agreed to talk to us because I think our readers will really enjoy reading about your experiences, and you have I personally enjoyed hearing your stories about working with various architects and such.
Yeah. Okay, hon. You take care,
You
and I'll send you
too.
the link.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Take care.
You're very welcome. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.